Why I Gave the Humans One of Our Warships, written by Farmwitch4275. Most contact with another species is always a fun time. The gabbling tones, random hand gestures while slow talking to make sure they get their points across. The frantic typing from linguistics and software engineers. The random bouts of charades to convey a security threat or some other thing. It was serious business, and seriously funny. I always had problems maintaining a straight face with all of the strange behavior that came from the various meetings. This was an exception. The Solarian Confederacy, a species called humans that had only just left their cradle, and by that I mean sovereignty of only 2 of their local star systems. Below the notice of most nations, even below the standards of pirates, it was unusual to find a species so early in development, so naturally I had to come with. We spoke Galactic Standard. The humans themselves were an odd bunch. The first contact team they sent consisted of a menagerie of miners, engineers, craftsmen, and pipe layers, rather than ambassadors or some other form of nobility. These creatures made me uneasy. I wasn't the only one who noticed. It wasn't the first time I encountered tradesmen and workers as first contact, but these creatures made me exceedingly cautious. Their eyes moved quickly. It was far too late that I realized my first mistake by inviting them onto our ship, as opposed to letting them be the hosts, a protocol we have since abandoned thanks to what we know now. The humans were doing the usual, translators typing away, hand gestures, finger movements, and a strangely adequate game of charades, all together the simple statement that we aren't here for a fight. The humans were extremely agitated the entire time, not in a violent or aggressive way, but rather their eyes were looking at anything and everything they could. They would stop mid-sentence, wander over to a panel, study it, then resume the conversation after an apology. Definitely abnormal behavior for anyone, let alone first contact people. When a door opened a little too quietly, they would kneel and look at the floor paneling and open and close it, watching it. They would ask permission to open panels to look at the fuse boxes or piping. We thought nothing of it. We wrote it off as little more than a quirk of the species. Everyone has their quirks. Then the next negotiation came, and the diplomats didn't do that. The next time we saw them, we were on one of their ships, about 6 months later. Their ships were small, utilitarian, very basic. Even their stations weren't designed for anything beyond standard crew operations for long-term missions, rather than permanent habitation. We gave them all details about factional border zones, pirate hideouts, trade routes, cargo lanes, and other things. But the entire time I couldn't help but feel that they were something strangely familiar. Not anything important, of course, but just a strange feeling of familiarity when looking at certain objects. The panel covers of a particular fuse box that had a particular pattern on it, opening it up to see a fuse configuration that looked oddly familiar. A familiar swoosh of a sliding door that fit just a little too well. The sound of the actuators and pistons pushing out, and all too familiar noise of a ball bearing joints hidden in the floor panel, muffled by fabric dust absorbers. The odd shape of a particular floor panel covering a walkway pipe network. Subtle things, small things, little things, tiny things. But still noticeable. After I went back to my own ship, the very same one the humans met us on that first time, and noticed. The pattern on the wall on the human ship looked suspiciously similar. I opened the fuse box and noticed a similarity. Uncanny similarity, only ours seemed more unjumbled, slightly more unkempt. It disgusted me for some reason. The fuses were looser. It seemed there could be more fuses in there. 8 in ours instead of 12 in the human's fuse box. I suddenly felt like a lot of important space was being wasted. I went through one of our doors, and the familiar swoosh noise seemed too loud, as if the ball bearings weren't properly oiled enough, or the fabric dust collectors didn't dampen the noise enough. I took a look, removing the service panel. The door had 55 ball bearings on the underside that made it move. All of the exact size, but seemed to be more overused. It seemed like a louder, more pronounced swoosh than the human ship. The door seemed ever so slightly slower than on the human ship. The sealing and securing mechanisms feeling like it took ever so slightly longer to finish. The difference must have been less than a second between them, but I couldn't help but feel like it was different, slower. I moved about and opened an access panel through service and pipe network. The pipes seemed more discoordinated than I thought they were, pipes crisscrossing here and there, and then redirecting there and here. It seemed oddly jumbled, inefficient. I thought about the human ship and passed by one of the technicians. I saw inside the pipe network, and everything was strangely more organized. It was larger and less compact than ours, but it seemed more organized. Pipes spread not only on the lateral plane to one side, but other pipes and cables spread around the center point within the shaft. It seemed oddly more efficient. The same thing happened again. We moved past one of their ships in dry dock shortly after their own first contact with our greatest rivals, the ingenuity. That ship in dry dock had an oddly familiar exhaust system, and the turrets on the top also strangely familiar. Definitely human design and make, but I couldn't shake that I was missing something. The flare of the flap and the drag fins for atmospheric flight. The way the turret melded perfectly with the hull. The way the end caps and the engines flared slightly as they tested the fuel system. Something about the human's construction seemed strangely familiar. Not strange, but more efficient. Not stronger or sturdier by any means. They were still a full century behind the rest of the galaxy, to be certain, but something about it made me feel uneasy, like they were developing just a bit faster than normal, and somehow we were to blame. Somehow, just allowing humans to have a look around was making them slightly better. It took me far too damn long to actually figure it out, far too goddamn long. To put it simply, humans were just starting out in the galactic stage. We never gave them any technology or equipment, at least not for a long time after first contact. So we never expected them to develop as quickly as they did. But now I know what actually happened. I know how it all worked. I know it took them less than half the time it usually takes for a new sapient to develop to the point of empire. They saw how we did it. Not shields, not armor plating, not weapons. No. Pipes, cables, panels, door hinges, airlock controls, circuit controllers, fuses. We never gave them anything even remotely close to our technology. We showed them the concept of cable management and pipe controls. We showed them how we performed basic maintenance, and they took off with it, turning it into an art form, and they did it all just by looking at our equipment. What exactly am I babbling about? Well, it's simple, you simpleton. A ship or station is entirely dependent on its maintenance network. The blood vessels in the heart of any ship is not its reactor or its crew. It's the several hundred miles of cables, pipes, circuits, and paneling to cover it all. Reactors are good and all, but how exactly are you going to get that power into your ship? Going to plug in an extension cord or something? No. Those cables have to be put somewhere, and maintenance corridors are where they go. You see, we gave the humans a glimpse at the most important thing of any star-faring species, the fundamentals, the foundations. We showed them how we built our ship's lifeblood, and they somehow, using nothing but memory, copied it and improved on it. We accidentally showed them how we properly aligned a pipe junction to deliver fuel from tanks to thrusters. We accidentally showed them how we built our cable network to deliver energy from reactors to consoles. We showed them how specific patterns on wall paneling could be used to indicate, without words or flashing lights, where an access panel is for a specific pipe lane. We showed them how we open and close the door in space. They used less materials to do a better job of it. They looked at what way we Barkhandi thrusters used flaps to redirect exhaust for a movement. They made flaps sleeker and more articulate. They saw how the Barkhandi warship moved its turrets and weapon mounting points, and they somehow improved on it. They saw how we used 8 fuses and then improved on it by adding 4 more, which meant that they had much more compact space to operate, and could fit more systems and redundancy in the same space. They had a better idea of cable management than we did, and they learned it from us. They saw how we did things, and somehow figured out a way to do it better. So, you may be asking, so what? To the untrained, that is a good question. It means that human engineers' prowess is far above what it appears to be. There is exceptional potential in their capacity for future projects. Any engineer or technician worth the salt in their blood would tell you that the simple fuse box is a testament to this. It's smaller, more compact, and easier to manage compared to ours. It means that they have better understanding of the limitations of the materials they use in construction, have a better grasp of the heat management and stronger understanding of spacing than we do. The paneling argument means they have an innate, almost instinctual capacity for pattern recognition, which means they can easily, almost too easily, identify problems, trace their origins, and by making certain patterns and panels on floors, know exactly where that particular cluster of shorting cables is. The door means that they know how to efficiently use resources. Our doors have 55 ball bearings. Theirs had 15, and theirs was stronger, faster, and sealed better, which denotes an exceptional ability to reduce resource use during construction without sacrificing safety or durability, or even quality, which means they have the potential for a ship crafting industry unlike any the galaxy has ever seen. The maintenance network also means that they have a greater flexibility in their ship's operations, which means an exceptional quality of redundancy in ship systems, which translates to the fact that their ships, should they ever get there, would be many, many times more durable in combat operations. Shields and fuel can be easily rerouted because the network is so simple to work with. So when one thing goes down, there's 20 other things to replace it. And all of this just because we let them take a close look. No taking anything apart, no removals, no salvage, no repurchasing ships, no reverse engineering of any kind. They just took a look at how we did it and tried the same, only better. This is not the reason to be concerned. It is a reason to be jubilant. I'm not telling you this to be scared of humans. I'm telling you this so that you can hurry up and start hiring them. Our ships are already the envy of galactic history due to its strength, power, and size. Now picture, if you will, these same ships, but with the redundancies, the management, and planning that goes into this. Humans managed to do all of this in one short year after first contact. 1 single year. The advancements they made shouldn't have been even slightly close to this point, and they have already started on manufacturing the first fully dedicated warship, using these same principles, just with their weaponry. Think carefully. Do you have any idea, regardless of that ship's capabilities, how difficult it would be to take that thing out? What if it has shields? How efficient at absorbing damage do you think it would be? What about the armor? Humans have a very long history of civil war, and they have refined, as we all know, warfare into an art form. Can you imagine what kinds of weaponry they could build? How fast would the railguns fire? What about laser weapons? How much energy do you think that they could release in one go? All because they have just a few more cables packed into a tight space. Think about it. Imagine if humanity got their hands at this early stage of their development any kind of galactic-level tech and reverse engineered it. Can you imagine how strong the shield tech would be? Can you imagine how much energy the reactors could produce? Could you imagine how fast we as a galaxy would develop alongside them? And it is all because humanity has a greater understanding of the fundamentals than we ever would. The fundamentals of infrastructure and logistics on a macro and micro level. It matters not what happens at point B if point A can't interact. And humans have turned this into an art form we cannot possibly compare to. We can fit 8 fuses, which means that we can fire 8 guns at once. They can fit 12 fuses in that same space, which means they can fire 12 guns at once. It's all about cables, pipes, fuses, gears, and levers. It's all about the foundation, and without it, nothing else works. They have mastered this long before we ever did, and have been using it to take leaps and bounds the likes of which the galaxy at large has never seen, in a time frame that we could not have anticipated. All because they just took a look at some pipes behind a panel when we let them. This is why, Great Council, I did what I just did, and I would gladly do it again, regardless of the consequences. I do not regret expending my entire personal fortune to purchase one of the most advanced frigates in the Imperium. I do not regret taking it to human space in full view of the entire human ambassadorial team. I do not regret accidentally dropping the keycards for the ship's control network in front of the human admiralty. I do not regret signing, with or without your approval, the paperwork for a full-time political and economic alliance with the Solarian Confederacy. And I especially do not regret the fact my crew and I enjoyed a free lunch while the humans took ownership of the ship they found with the keys in the ignition. I regret nothing, and soon, neither would you. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.